He's lying there, a little grubby, but looking like he's asleep. All these machines and things going into him. Just one bead of blood. It's supposed to be, according to the script in my head, supposed to be dead when I arrived here. That would have been 45 minutes after I found him.
Get into the hospital, and I think I must have seen David. There was a social worker there who pulled me into a side room.
Before you go in and see your son, we just need to let you know what you're gonna see.
I'm going, right, okay. That sounds really scary, ominous. They had some pictures of the different things you might see. You know, so there's a breathing tube going down his throat and intravenous things in here, and I'm going, I'm okay, but you're still in shock.
We went in.
He just looked asleep.
You can hold him, kiss him, and talk to him.
There were a couple of times where they kicked us out.
I need to talk to you about organ donation.
He's in the other room. He's not dead.
I'm sorry.
I can't deal with this now.
Christian has been moved to the CAT scan. Chris is a very sick boy. Live 5 minutes at a time.
Mum and Dad were sitting there with one of the doctors. Mum was crying. Dad was sitting with Mum. We went in and I started. I knew that something was really wrong. Yeah.
I can still remember them turning up in their school uniform. No one had told them much. I think, again, probably the shock and the disbelief.
Ari went straight to Mum to comfort her. He was comforting Mum. We all just sat down. Dad said,
Doctor's got something to tell you.
Christian went into cardiac arrest. He was dead when Dad found him. Stopped breathing. We don't know why.
Mum was, I think the right word for it would be inconsolable. Dad was restrained, but he was given his support too.
Christian was getting a CAT scan. We couldn't see him right away. We had a private little room. We just sat there for a while. It would have been an hour and a half, maybe later than that. We had to sit in the room and wait. Oh, why can't we just go in? When I first saw him, he was all hooked up to these different things. It was just, I couldn't believe it was actually happening.
I was a bit withdrawn. I was needing to hit something, just not knowing why.
Holy shit. It was definitely unreal. I was just like, yeah.
I was a little bit angry at Chris, but I was a little bit angry at the situation. We all were, in a little way.
Mum was absolutely. She couldn't stand up. I was always stood very back from it.
It's not normal. Seeing someone hooked up like that. It's just, yeah.
Ari was very stone-faced.
I sat next to Chris. I was holding his hand. It was cold. They had him on a cold thingy to get his temperature down. If something were to go wrong, all right, I wanted to be there. At first they were saying only a few people at a time. Dad was saying,
We should go get something to eat.
I just, no. If something were to go wrong, all right, I wanted to be there.
Danica was inconsolable.
Nate is a friend of Christian's, and Michelle is Chris's employer. Wednesday morning, and Stephen sent me a message.
His dad ran work and said that he'd been in, I can't remember the exact words.
Chris is dead.
Oh no, that's right, just let him have the next few days off.
I was like, what? April's 1st? It's April's Fool. Must be fucking with me. He told me it wasn't a joke. It wasn't until an hour or so later I found out he was just in intensive care.
I sort of started thinking maybe he'd been in a car accident. Dave rang the owner later and we all found out.
In my opinion anyway, he was my best friend. High school, parties and stuff.
He had big ambition. He really wanted to do something with his life.
There was something about him. He was really open and just laid back, you know?
He was just confused and a bit stuck. In a bit of a rut.
He jumped your defence if he thought you were being wronged. He'd equally jump to someone else's defence if he thought you were being wrong.
He had decided he was going to be a politician. All those other things.
He was a very moral person, I guess. I really liked that.
He was stuck and didn't know how to get himself out. A lot of kids like that here.
It's terrible that something as horrible as this happened to such a nice family.
I'd never known anyone who'd gone into hospital and died. No one close to me. For me, I'd known people who had gone into hospital. You know, I had 3 babies in hospital. I had another bit of surgery at one stage. David had knee surgery. and other family members. Christian had his tonsils out, and people got into hospital, but for me they always came out. And they came out well and better and whatever was fixed. It was always, he's going to be okay, he's made it to hospital. Yes, he's been in an accident. I don't really know what's going on here, but he's going to be okay because he's made it to hospital. Nothing's bad going to happen now. I remember on that first day, right from when the doctor's saying...
Probably. The ecstasy constricts the blood vessels and would have stopped the flow of blood to the heart. He was without oxygen for an immeasurable time. This is called hypoxia, and the result is a terrible insult to the brain. We will be looking for signs of automatic response and consciousness from the point on. We will give him 72 hours to demonstrate likely recovery.
It never penetrated for me. My brother's son nearly died. My sister-in-law said she saw him turn a corpse-like colour. But, he came out, he survived. He was in there for a while. So for me, it's all right. He's going to be okay.
He's stable. You can see him. Chris's lungs are almost completely filled with fluid. He has pneumonia. He's now resting face down in order to breathe. He dropped 50% blood oxygen saturation. We need 100.
I thought that he was just in a coma and he'd wake up. I knew I knew his heart had stopped and that wasn't any blood flow to his brain, but everything. He was breathing and stuff, so I thought it would be okay. We left about 8 or 9 o'clock.
They found I had a cyst, which meant a cesarean. So that meant I had to be put under general anaesthetic. And I just remember waking up and, I just felt like death. You just wake up and then they put this baby in your arm and you're expected to do all this stuff. And it really was, it was the worst introduction to motherhood that anybody could have living in Australia.
We were just crying. The nurse said, "Do you want to hold him?" And I said, "Yeah." And he held a baby. The second he was in my arms, he looked up at me and stopped crying.
Thursday, April 2nd, 2009, 9 a.m, 24 hours since admission.
Chris's sedation ends after the first 24 hours. Then there is a 72 hours in which doctors will expect to see some signs of consciousness returning.
We wait and wait.
It was the first day we got flowers. Chris had some visitors. They'd taken him off the cold blanket. Because he was warming up, he started to twitch. It was really quite vibrant. It was really quite hard to see him like that.
That comfort room, there are no windows. There's no connection to the outside world, so there's no way of telling the time.
We were saying, it's good, he's getting movement.
It can be good, because he's moving and his brain's reacting. Or it can be that his brain has died because there are no messages. Just the nerves are doing whatever they want.
He had some blood tests and stuff, and I think by then we were starting to know it was from the drugs.
Danica asks if she can brush Chris's hair. Bob and Bill are coming up together.
I met Bob when we drove up to Toowoomba. David's my brother. That's what you do. Friendship matters when it's hard. So we're driving, and I can remember, obviously, Bob's got more of a medical background than I do. Bob's an ambulance officer. I said, "Okay, what are we doing?"
"Mate, he'll be gone. The only thing that'll be left is his body. He'll be brain dead, or close to it. We're going up there to look after Helena and David." The real problem we detected through those days was that David and Helena were sending out different messages to everyone.
There were times when David and Helena couldn't talk to each other. It was extraordinary. It was so raw and it was so amplified that the wrong word would be heard completely the wrong way. We had to work on getting to say, "This is what you're hearing. This is what I'm saying."
The message was similar, but the way they were delivering it was different. Emphasis, so that as an outsider looking at the message you were getting...
I remember walking across the zebra crossing.
"Dave!"
They just grabbed and hugged me.
"You alright?"
Bit shattered. We're in the middle of the road.
Fuck the taxis. I've been around ICUs. It didn't shock me. I wasn't shocked, but there were some scans up on the wall. I'm not a radiologist, but I've seen scans that are very similar, and the outcome's invariably bad. What do you want me to do? Crush people?
That was a very hard burden for him to deal with. He's very good with his job.
David went through these really funky ups and downs. There was...
Yeah, things are going to be good. He'll be fine.
Through the process of...
I don't care how he comes out of this. In a vegetative state, I want him here.
Through to...
He's going to die. No hope.
Through to...
Let's just see how this goes.
My biggest fear for them was that they weren't preparing for an adverse outcome. One of the earliest conversations I had with Helena, I really need you to pace yourself. I really need you to pace what you're giving out emotionally, and I really need you to hold on and not just let it burn. I really need you to be ready in case we don't have everything falling into place and working well. Bank your emotions and let them go as you need, but hold on to yourself. The belief process was that he'd pull through.
Are you all family?
Yes.
Bill met with some visitors. He had visitors that day. There was a lady and her boyfriend who were with Chris at the time on that weekend. And even after seeing Chris, she came out and she expressed a view that she was involved, and she always tried to make sure that the kids did it safely. Why on earth would you consider that you could do this in a safe way? And was clearly in a position where she was mentoring people into the drug culture.
Medically, Chris is more stable. The lungs are clearing of liquids and he's on antibiotics for the pneumonia. He's been off this station since 11 a.m. and we're now playing the waiting game of Will He Wake Up? Kidney and liver function are worrying. There are not yet any signs of neurological function at the high levels.
Carla with a K.
Kate.
I had a TAFE class with Christian.
Visual art.
He walked in late one day and I said something about he just missed a very provocative pose that one of the other students were doing for a live drawing. And he said, "That's all right, I'll get my girlfriend to pose for me later."
He was one of those kids who you just met and liked instantly.
And then he said, "Oh, no, I'm only kidding. I wouldn't objectify her like that."
He was a nice kid.
And I just thought, oh, what a sweetie.
He just seemed to be able to chat to anyone.
He sat at this table with myself, in my 40s, and this other girl who was about 28. But he didn't have any problem with talking to everybody. And he clearly adored his father and his grandmother.
I was always so surprised at the concepts he came up with for a boy of his age.
His grandmother came into the class one day, and the last time I saw him, and he just got straight up from the table and walked over, put his arm around her and gave her like a good big hug.
He had a lot of care about the world, politically and socially. He was so strong about justice in the world. He watched Parliamentary Question Time, for God's sake. He'd get this grin. He had these baby blue eyes.
Well, the day that he went into hospital, he was supposed to be here because he'd been boasting to this other student.
He's going, "Nothing beats my dessert, just don't even try." Cheeky little bugger.
And they were sort of having this thing, they were going to have a bake-off.
I thought it was so funny that this boy wanted to hang out with what were essentially, in his mind, two old ladies, really, and make desserts.
Well, my house is close. And then I just kept getting put off. But I went up to TAFE, and I got there early, and I thought I'd better check, see if he'd actually made the dessert. So I sent him a text message, and of course I didn't get a reply. So I sent a message to David as well, and David rang me back from the hospital. It just makes you realise that you shouldn't put off things like dessert, really. Never postpone dessert. I feel like a fraud, almost. Even being upset. Like, I hardly knew him, I was on the edge of getting to know him. But you realise how many people are affected. And even the ones who aren't terribly, terribly effective, the ones the next circle around who are just family, you just think you've got this obligation to stay alive, because even if you think nobody loves you and you won't affect that many people, you do, and you affect everybody. Everybody knows you, and everybody who knows the people that know you and the people who know them. It's just, you can't even cross the road sometimes without thinking, I must look both ways and be very, very careful so that I don't get killed and nobody has to feel this way.
Still pouring rain. We have to take an outside seat in the veranda at the restaurant. It's cold and wet, but no one minds. We tell Christian stories and laugh and laugh. People must think we're mad. People can get stuffed.
When I was about in grade 4 or 5, when he was in 9 or 10, I noticed changing. But I thought that was probably because he was turning into a teenager. But as I hit 6, 7, he started becoming worse. He wouldn't really communicate well, but get into fights with mum and dad really easily. Then we went away on the 2007 trip.
The night before, it was absolutely horrible. We're trying to get the trailer unpacked and people in the car, and Christian didn't want to go and he wasn't being helpful. And I was really tired and cranky, so I'm like, nah, I'm going to bed.
The reason Chris didn't want to go is because he was going to be away from his friends. Chris was having problems with school and with drugs. We just said, "You're coming with us." We put him in a car and he was so angry. It took 2 or 3 days. We've got photographs at him in Mount Isa, smoking. I said to Helena, "If he smokes, make absolutely nothing of it. Don't mention it." It was interesting over about a week. He stopped deliberately taking a cigarette out and lighting it.
It's gotten coming like it was. Before 9 and 10, and then Dad told me in Darnold that it's probably because he's been detoxifying from all the drugs he's been having.
We started to work together. So we said, you do this, and I'll do that, and Christian, you do that. And you know, he kind of felt good because he could tell us what to do. He started to... I really enjoyed it because we started acting as a family. Whereas Christian before, that was very much going out every night, you know? I didn't have a big brother.
You're becoming a big brother again.
We paddled up Catherine Gorge, you know? He would go and sneak up behind us and splash water on us and be a real smart ass and stuff like that. So it just became such a thing of it. It was just so awesome because we all started to act like a family again.
Somewhere between all of this, he came away and sobered up long enough to realise what he was doing inside his own head. That he could actually think if he stopped taking drugs. It was a revelation.
Because before that, like Christian had been to different schools and Mum was really upset because, you know, she didn't know what to do and Dad's going, no, just leave him. And Grandma's telling Mum what to do, so it was really hard.
He started coming out of himself. By the time he got up to, it was rock climbing and he was swimming in the lakes and, you know, gave him that experience. It was something he could remember. And we were interacting with him as a human being, not pushing him into anything. The last thing we did on that trip, we ended up in Charville in a Cosmos Centre. I remember the sound in his voice when he saw Jupiter. He was blown away. Things calmed down so much after that trip. After that, I think there was a real difference.
As soon as, like a week before we got back, it started coming like it was again. And we just lost connection.
Friday, April 3rd, 2009. 24 hours without sedation.
I didn't go. I went to a friend's place to kind of recoup. Didn't think about it.
Helena's mother takes a pilgrimage to the bedside on the Friday morning.
The last conversation I had with Christian was 3 months before he died. It was over the telephone. I asked how he was doing. He said, okay, not great, but okay. And I said to Christian, Christian, you were baptised. Do you still go to church every Sunday? And Christian said, oh, Grandma, no. You know church is dumb. You know how young people are? They believe in technology. And all this, I said to Christian, God created man. You know this. And man created all the technology. So God is great. And if you ever in trouble in your life, you've been baptized. All you have to do is look up and say, God help me. And I'm sure that's what he did 3 months later. But young people need to know about God. After all, where do we go when we die?
The twitching was peaking. Walking at some stage and the twitching stopped. That's the next step. Helena's mother comes in. Great believer in the power of prayer. I just remember her seeing the twitching and saying, look, he's moving. And everyone in the room turned around and saying,
No,
That means he's dead.
Oh, God.
Don't give us false hope. Not for a second.
Nicole arrived that day too.
I drove up early. They were all shell-shocked. Gave the kids big cuddles. David and Hilda wanted me to be able to go in that I was going to be an aunt. It was only immediate family at that point. My job was that those two were on the same page. Bill, Bob and I ended up being in pretty much every doctor's briefing and pretty much every place you'd expect just the family to be. So that was something amazing. David and Helena realised that they needed support. The doctor would give a briefing, and Helena would hear this, and David would hear that. In the most respectful way, sometimes I wanted to slap. That's not what the doctor said, and neither of them were hearing. They were hoping for a good outcome. It became clear very quickly that the outcome was not going to be good.
Friends of Chris arrived to wish him well. The guys write the numbers in an artist journal. Danica tells them to include a message to Chris, and we all read it to him.
Hey mate, for everything man, every ciggy, every biddy, every pill, nothing was real. It's real now, and I hope to fuck I get to sit with you again and just hang. I'm hanging right now for you, and I love you mate. I always valued your friendship, and you know, the only reason I wasn't there as much as I could have been was through selfishness, and I've never wanted this to happen to me, and in doing that I let it happen for you. I love you, and I'll be willing you to wake up with every bit of care and love I can. Your friend forever.
Bob was there too.
And then Stephen arrived. I saw someone who was tormented. I saw someone who would not take his glasses off. I saw someone who, when he did, I looked into his eyes. I knew that Chris and Stephen... I spoke very strongly to him when he brought up his friend.
Stephen brought in a survivor from a coma.
He held this bloke up as being his hope. He was racing around to everyone as an example of what you can hope for. I took him outside. I spoke very, very strongly. I remember trying to be reasonable. I was infuriated by him. He was fucking up a well-laid plan that we'd been caring for David and Hannah by throwing this bloody...
Stephen is in his 30s. I was one of the few people that Christian could tell anything to. I didn't judge him or get angry with him. Tried to give him advice, but that's about it. I've got a son who'd probably be the same age as Christian, over in Indonesia. So Christian and me were good friends, mates. Ideologically, I believe prohibition is a crime. I believe that people should take their own responsibility for their actions. Christian was very unlucky. I know a lot of people who've died from drugs, 30 or 40. Yeah, in Indonesia, where I was living, everyone dropped dead. If I wanted to buy ecstasy, I'd buy it off Christian. I wouldn't ask him, but I'd ask his friend or whoever. I suppose it's easier to get ecstasy than alcohol. They pay $20. It's not ecstasy, but it's really like speed or stuff. Pay $20 and it lasts them all night. And they don't get hangovers and they don't come home spending alcohol. You ever had ecstasy? You ever had any drugs? It's very hard, you know, if you're a friend. Wait, no. Yeah, I never went to a party. I never went to parties. I tell them what I know about. I didn't dob on him. Occasionally I'll give David hints. Try to keep Christian's trust. And they were into everything, you know. Not just ecstasy. They tried everything. We're all going to dead very shortly, you know. I'm not going to cry about it. What I really didn't like was seeing him in hospital. Just the way he looked. So I tried to think of it. We're all going to be dead soon anyway. And you know, I don't really think they're all liars. All those children, I feel guilty. It's because I didn't do more. We all sinned. We all could have tried harder, looked harder. But it's very hard, you know, if you're a friend. Very hard if you're authoritative and then you're going to lose friendship. I don't really think there was much else I could have done. But I think I'll see him shortly anyway.
Saturday, April 4th,
2009. 48 hours without sedation.
Chris is now moved to a secluded area in the ICU in order that he can have visitors.
Bob, Bill and Nicole take control.
Those nurses were fabulous. I've never seen so much traffic. They let us do what we wanted. A lot of his friends came round. Bob and Bill did a lot of the briefing of the young kids because it was confronting. And while part of me wanted them to be confronted and let them be shocked, I guess that was not... I was feeling a little heartless at that point. Knowing that there were quite a few friends there who contributed.
You set up a process. We were there from morning until night doing that.
We would have something like 400 people through from 10 a.m. to 11 at night.
We're hoping for the best. If you have something to say to Chris, if he happens to not be here the next time you come, you have to say it.
Some of the boys came in a bit full of swagger and they were inside the drug culture. They varied in reaction from stoic but clearly affected to completely crushed. Like completely crushed. There was one boy in particular, but he came out and he was inconsolable. He was crying in buckets.
And all those kids. There was a lot of crying. They were so shocked. Everyone kept saying, "Wake up, Chris! Wake up, Chris!"
It was great. I find strength in helping other people deal with their problem. By me helping, if I was a shoulder to cry on, it made me feel stronger. So like, I could help other people because I had a couple of days for it to sink through. I still hoped and stuff, but
They just came in, really teary. They made jokes, laughing with them at him, really. But yeah, I vaguely remember giving just support to somebody who was crying because she'd just been in. You'll be alright.
Nate, Maddie, and Malcolm all knew Christian in different ways. They all came on that Saturday. It was really hard.
It sucked.
Never been to hospital before.
Our relationship was always kind of built around taking drugs because that was our first contact with that group. It starts out as pot, and you go to ecstasy, and eventually it moves on.
Went to a few parties together, you know. Stephen through a mutual friend. Weed and other drugs together, just recreationally though.
And then out of the blue, he just sat down and had this big heart-to-heart about this girl, Alyssa, he was seeing at the time. He was hurt. He never got over her.
I think people would find the level of drug abuse surprising, I suppose.
People finding age of people doing it shocking and the intravenous stuff.
Because, I mean, some weekends you go out there and you buy 4 pills, stick of weed, heroin, I suppose, gram of speed or something. One weekend it was really easy to use all that up for one person.
And like the blasé about it. Like, we could do anything at all. They'd be pretty shocked at our general disregard for life. Don't really think about it.
I think I only ever took anything with him once. And we smoked weed.
I haven't used it in a while now. Didn't consider myself addicted. I started using the speed and realised I was. I didn't have any money, it was all wasted. Ridiculous. $300 or $400 a week, just like that.
I often wonder how normal people cope with life and stuff, you know. It's just a release. It's like a hobby. I don't feel like I'm addicted, but I wouldn't know. It's not because I'm depressed. I have a great life. Can't explain it.
I started using opiates, Oxycontin and morphine instead of speed. And that broke the speed addiction, but it didn't take me very long to develop an opiate addiction to then either. I'm still struggling with that now.
I started to get a little freaked in the early '09. He seemed stressed. But he was like, "No, it's all fine, it'll be okay."
My family's always been really supportive. If I didn't have them around, I'd be living on the streets probably.
I've done it so much and I haven't had any negative effect. Well, I've seen the negative effects, but I don't know. You just think that'll never happen to you, which is probably a bad way to think about it.
Now I've seen firsthand that thing can go terribly wrong when you don't think it's going to. And yeah, it's sort of... don't ever do drugs in your life, because people are going to do it anyway.
I don't like the thing of this thing having power over me. Just the way it currently it affects my life too much. It costs too much. It takes a lot of time out of my day. I've gotten sick of it. It holds me back.
I've cut back, not because of Christian, but I've had some issues. I don't want to get into that.
He happens to be in a crowd where it's available. If you're intelligent, you're curious. He wasn't the type of kid that every weekend would go out and get smashed. He used to be, but not now.
Before this happened, it wasn't in my mind. I finally sort of dealt with it. I realised that there's no more real future for me if I keep going the way I'm going. I don't want to end up like that. A 30-year-old dealing drugs to kids, not having achieved anything in my life.
I still smoke pot and drink and stuff. I don't think about Chris. It could happen to me, but that'd be pretty shit house. I don't know. That was a pretty extreme. I still don't even know the full story. I'd be really surprised if that ever happened to one of my mates.
I miss him. It took me a long time to stop texting him.
Hundreds of people came to the hospital on the Saturday, but there were plenty who didn't or couldn't.
I didn't want to leave Christian's room at all. The food or for anything, I tried to stay with him and as much as possible. But so yeah, Saturday came and yeah, he said, "Does anyone want to stay tonight?" I said, "I'll stay." I listened to some music with him and I talked about the Northern Territory trip with him. Felt that he was still there. Dear Chris. So I never thought we would be in this situation. You know the crap out of me so much, but I guess that's your job as a big brother. You weren't always bad. We had our good times. Remember when we went up to the NT and you were paddling up Catherine Gorge and you would splash us with your paddle and Or when we would go to Bowen and climb all the rocks. Ari and I both look up to you, and you mean so much to us. Even when we'd fight and scream, sometimes I would just tell you to shut up because you know you hated when I did it. We're sitting here and everyone's so sad. I need you, Chris. You're supposed to be the one to take me out and buy me my first drink, and I'm supposed to be best friends with your girlfriend and be an auntie to your kids. We all love you so much. We need you here with us, Chris. Your 19th birthday is this month. We were looking forward to celebrating it with you. Apparently Mum and Dad have bought you a present already. We love you, Chris. So, so much. Kiss, cuddle, kiss, cuddle.
Ari's gorgeous. He became a man well before his time. And did he do some growing up in that week? And since? He was so young. He refused to go in to see Chris. I spent hours with him. He wasn't talking to anybody. We took him outside. He started swearing the whole situation, calling Chris a fuckwit. He was scared. Eventually we got him to go in and see him. He ended up spending a lot of time with him after that. He was just a little boy. Now he's a man.
They were really worried about me. I went to the hospital, but I couldn't go into the room. I wish you could see my life. It's not normal seeing someone like that.
Don't have to be strong for me, you know.
Don't, Dad.
I'm surrounded by people who have been strong for me. Because of them, I can be strong for you. You don't have to be strong for your mother either.
Sunday, April 5th, 2009. 72 hours without sedation. No sign of improvement.
You're going to be asked today what you'd like to happen should there be an adverse event. They're obliged to ask you. I need you to start thinking about what Chris would want. I need you to start thinking about and putting into play a process of thinking in a not so positive light, without trying to trash hope. I'm an ambulance officer. I've heard some wonderful noises. The best sound in the world is hearing the baby cry. Life is present, they're responding, they're breathing, they're howling their hearts out. It's a beautiful noise. I've been privy to the worst noise in the world now. Helena was sitting in front of me and I romped a bit close to her and put my hands on her knee and she asked me,
Are we doing the right thing?
"How'd you answer that?" And she leant in and gave me a cuddle and a hug. She grabbed me tight and let loose with us. Primeval howl that was in the moment she realised that her son was lost to her. She grabbed on and she just cried. That is the worst sound in the world. And I never want to hear it again. All because of a stupid fucking mistake. And a wrong decision. And of course events that didn't mean to happen. I don't want to be there again. It scarred me.
We've got a decision to make.
I want my son back. Want my family back. Chris was so concerned about spending time with his friends, doing what his friends were doing. Okay, where's this party? Give me the phone number so I can ring the parents. We probably have said, "You're not going. Can I stay over at Will's place? Can I stay over at his place?" They fall asleep pissed under a tree. Hold it. We're here losing this child. What do we really want? Do we want for our child to be able to walk back into our house and feel safe here? Or are we going to have them walk out and not come back for 10, 15 years or ever?
Unfortunately, Kristen and I had not really been talking to each other. We'd been fighting for about 5 days before. This is something I had to live with for the rest of my life. I'd been spending a lot of time with Chris, in that I was usually the one who drove him to work and I picked him up from work. Because we'd actually been talking to each other a little bit more like adults, and I actually plucked up the courage to say to him that I heard that he and Alyssa were getting back together. He just flew off the handle. "Who told you that? Rah, rah, rah."
You start hearing he's hanging out with the party crowd. People knew the connections, but it was never explicitly stated. There was a bunch of really good middle-class kids who came out of one of those private schools. They're the ones who engaged in these activities.
It was Friday afternoon that he was leaving, and he came up to me in the kitchen. I was washing up or something, and he said, "I'm going now, would you like a hug?" And I said no, because he'd been absolutely unlivable with for the last 5 days. And those were the last words I said to him.
I came home one day. Chris and his friend are in the front garden. They're obviously hiding something. "Hold it, that's dope. Marijuana." No, no, no. How far do you push this? You pat them down, you go for their bags? You can't do this to me. It's my privacy. Breach of trust. Very difficult to negotiate. We made mistakes in there. I get a phone call. Your son's in trouble. Come to the school. They pulled out some plastic bags, tiny little ziplocs, a ceramic bowl, and a syringe. We found this on your son. Okay. We've rung the police. Okay. Suspended for 2 weeks. Okay. You're just sort of looking at me. I didn't say anything apart from, yep, don't worry, it's okay. He's saying, I didn't do it. He stopped and looked at me and he said, why are you yelling at me?
David would fight for his children, but I do think he was far too lax with Christian.
What did they achieve?
I stayed with him on Sunday night. On Saturday, I remember thinking, wow, all these people actually like him. That's terrible, but we just clashed far too often. And I used to get so angry with him. I saw this kid with so much potential and he could really go and make a difference with his life. And yet, I just saw him whittle it all away. And yet, all these people were here, coming up to the hospital, who clearly thought that this was a worthwhile person, worth knowing and worth of love, and all those sort of things. Holy shit, I really did think I've missed something. When all these female friends are coming up and being absolutely distraught. The absolute despair that, this kid who had so much potential and so much promise and yet all gone. And I feel like, I was a passenger in all this. Like I was powerless to stop these things happening because they just felt I was pushing Christian too hard. So David told me, everyone told me, Helena, back off Christian, just back off. Because, you're putting way too much pressure on him or whatever. I listened to them. I still beat myself over. How could I have backed off? This wasn't their child. This wasn't anybody else's child. This was my child. This was my responsibility and I followed what they said. And I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And that's a tough thing. If I prayed hard enough, this wouldn't have happened. We love you and we want you all to come back. But if we have to go, then you have to go.
Mrs. Rhodes, you need to get some sleep.
He's going. Bill and Nicole were in a hotel. Bob was back in Brisbane. Mum and Dad were in Gatton.
Dad got a call. Came in and woke us up.
Got in the car. Drove apparently on 2 wheels around a corner.
We all hopped in the blue car. We drove over.
Apparently we weren't on 2 wheels.
Got the call. We broke world speed records getting back.
Got a call from Ari in the morning to tell me he was going. How brave of that little bugger to ring me.
Bob didn't make it back in time. He was up there just after.
From the time that I got the phone call to the time I got to Toowoomba was an hour and 20 minutes, which is about the best you're going to get on that road.
Certain medical equipment was taken off him. He turned off the ventilator.
It was at night. I had little sleep there, but for the grace of God and 2 cans of beer and a Mars bar, I was fine.
Everyone apart from me, Dad, Mum and Ari. We all went next door. We were all sitting around.
Met Mum and the doctor. The nurse and security staff looking worried. It started to happen. They said if he goes, let him go.
And over the next 25 minutes, he slowly stopped breathing.
He's gone.
At 4:34 a.m. on the 6th of April 2009, his heart beats its last. His body is too tired to continue to fight. Chris passes away quietly with dignity, surrounded by love. Slowly his body changes, colour changes and his temperature drops to our touch as we cry and sit with him. We place his Mighty Boosh t-shirt over his naked chest, ruffle his hair and secure Teddy in the crook of his arm. He could just be asleep if not for the alabaster paleness and what appears to be bruising developing in his cheek. Christian Immons Towards isn't there anymore.
Every person gives an entirely unique answer to the questions and beliefs about the afterlife and spirituality. Many participants are strict atheists. This includes David, who preferred to cherish Christian in memory. Danica dreams of Christian frequently and prays to him. Overall, though, she says she feels lost. Helena was baptised and describes this period in her life as a spiritual crisis. As the family gathered in the park on the Monday morning, some were certain they saw a mighty blue-shaped cloud in the sky. Chris's favourite TV show, and the sign that he was okay. Immons, Chris's grandfather, David's father, was there the whole time.
If I don't sound very emotional, I was, as a young child, I was in Europe in the last war. People dying was not a new sight. I felt more emotionally upset at the pain than David, Helena and the kids were having. About 6 months or so ago, David and Helena were going through a stink there. They were arguing and fighting. Danica rang up and said, "Grandpa, Grandma, Dad and Mum are fighting. Come do something about it, because I saw on the internet that 90% of families where somebody dies, they get a divorce. And I don't want them to get divorced.
Nicole, in her interview, she kept saying that word. Broken. 10 months after Chris's death, the autopsy report is delivered. Christian died of an aspiration, meaning he was sick in his sleep and inhaled vomit. The lack of oxygen caused by this triggered a series of events that led to his eventual passing. Christian's gag reflex didn't work because his body was too subdued from the drugs, and so Christian Towles did not die of a drug overdose. He did not die because he took too many substances. He died because he took any at all.
If you're going to do drugs, don't do them excessively. Don't do huge amounts, just take it easy. Drink plenty of water, keep yourself hydrated. But why would you do drugs? I understand, but...
I want to slap them in the face. I want to tell them it's not good. It will kill you. It's stupid. Just to think twice about it. Just really, honestly, sit down and take a good hard look at yourself. Yeah, it might not happen, but there's plenty of people out there who it has happened to.
To me, if you're going to do it, you already know. You've got a pretty good idea. It's the risk you take. People know what they're doing.
They're just going to. I smoked for years and years and years, and the evidence was there. Did I give a toss? Nah. I don't know.
Take care. That's the best advice. Because street drugs, you just don't know. That's one of the big downsides of prohibition. It's dangerous.
I would like them to be fully aware of the implications of the health issues and what not to do.
I think the hardest thing is that these kids are making what they think are educated choices. This has made me tougher, a little less forgiving.
What I like to do is sit down with them over a cup of tea and talk to them about Chris.
Chris's life celebration was on the 17th of April 2009. It was 10 days before what would have been his 19th birthday. Bob gave a eulogy.
His one poor decision means that we all will be poorer for his loss. But we must remind ourselves to take his beauty, strength and warmth with us and learn the lessons that he afforded us even now. His spirit is still very much alive. It is contained within all of us. And it is our duty to carry forward his light and spirit. Illuminate the circle of friends and family with those great human values to apply demonstrated. What happened next is not about blame. It is not about recrimination, and it is not about what ifs. He has given us an opportunity to take a step in the right direction. It is now about what we do to move forward and learn and participate. I remember with fondness his boyish enthusiasm and the energy he applied to the things important to him. I remember his infectious laugh and know that he is a light of incandescent brilliance that flashed through our lives. Christian, your spirit lives in everyone you touched, and so it shall fly to the sunrise and onto the stars. Go kindly and safe home.